continuing in our Perl Quick Start. If you're looking for a quick answer to how do I use a loop in Perl, you're in the right place. In this case, we're going to take our count lines example from the Reading a File movie, and we're going to do the same exercise but using a loop instead. In the count line script, if you'll remember, I'll go ahead and I'll open that here. We read the entire file into an array all at once. The problem with this approach is that if your file is very, very large, you run the risk of crashing your computer, having a stack overflow, having problems with that because you've read it all in all at once. In this movie, what we're going to do is we're going to read that same file. We're going to read it line by line using a loop instead. And so here we have the same file name, linesfile.txt, which is just a simple little flat file with 50 lines of text in it. And in this case, we're going to open the file and read the file line by line, and we're going to use the IO file module. In the count lines example, we just used Perl's built-in native open, close, and reading the file handle technique. And that's fine for some very simple applications, but most of the time, you're going to want to use a richer interface. And in this case, we're using the IO file interface, which is very, very common in Perl. This is the way that file IO is commonly done. And it's an object-oriented interface. And so the first thing we do is we create a new file handle object, and that's using this syntax here. So IO file and this dash and right angle bracket to create an arrow, and new. So new is a method inside the IO file object-oriented module. And new has two arguments. It's got the file name and an R, which indicates that we're opening the file for read only and not for writing. And if we didn't get a file handle, if it didn't work, we can print an error message, which will say cannot open file name. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. And then once we have the file opened, we count the lines. So we start with a count equals 0, and we use a while loop, and we'll talk later on about the different kinds of loops available in Perl, and we'll get into the details on that. And so we get a line one at a time, and we count them one by one using the increment operator for our number, which started at 0. And so for each line, it'll get incremented by 1. When we're all done, we close the file handle, and we print out the results. And so if I go ahead and run, you'll see there's our results. There are 50 lines in the text file. If for some reason it cannot open the file, and let's just go ahead and change the name of the file here. So I'm going to put an X in front of that. The file name will be wrong and it won't be able to open the file. So I'll save and run. Now we get this error message, cannot open xlinesfiles.txt. No such file or directory. And so what this is here's the error message, cannot open, and there's the file name from the variable here, file name. And the error message is in this special variable, and we'll have a whole chapter on the special variables. This is the one that gives you errors from the operating system, $! Or as we say, $bang. And that gives you the error message from the operating system. So cannot open file name, an error message. And in our results, we saw that it says, cannot open linesfile.txt, no such file or directory. So we'll change this back, and we'll save, and we'll run again. And there we have it. There are 50 lines in linesfile. So that's how you use a loop. Bring this back. So that's a very simple loop using a while loop. We've got a conditional here also, a little bonus. You can see how to do that. You see how to get an error message out. And this is a much more robust way to do the count lines. It's not going to crash if you've got a lot of lines in your file. It's reading them one by one. This is a much more robust way to read a text file in Perl using a loop.